Hola Familia, and welcome to another episode of Fire and Butterflies, where vulnerability meets authenticity, where courage meets love, and where fire meets butterflies. And I am your host, Comadre Cristal, and I'm so excited for this episode because I have Tisha Marie Cain back onto this episode. She was on the previous episode. Goodness, I don't even know what number it was, but I'm glad to have her back. As a reminder, Tisha Marie Cain is an extraordinary individual. So she's a master intuitive clinical hypnotherapist, certified master neo-linguistic programming coach, and #1 international best-selling published author and artist. Her mission is to alleviate suffering through the power of mindset. Tisha's life is one filled with domestic abuse, fear, and relentless stress. However, her resilience propelled her forward as she fought to liberate herself. She discovered that through true liberation lies within one's inner voice. Guided by her belief in her potential, Tisha embarked on a journey of self-discovery, breaking free from negativity and chaos. Today, she serves as a guiding light, helping others embrace their true selves. With 25 years of management experience, Tisha has a track record of success and exceptional communication skills. She is also a trusted officer of the court and holds a prestigious law degree. Tisha's impact extends beyond the courtroom as an international mindset coach, transforming lives and partnering with top personal development coaches who have impacted the world. Ah, Tisha.
That's
Welcome
a
back.
lot.
It is, but God, there's never a lot. I love that. Good for welcome back.
Thank you so much. So what an honor. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you. Thank you for yeah, keeping in touch with me and seeing your growth and seeing what's been going on. And when I said, "Hey, do you ever want to come back?" and you're like, "Yes, and I want to talk about this." And I thought to myself, this is the perfect thing to talk about because I have witnessed it. So everyone, that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about stories of reality creation and shifting consciousness. And it's something that is so true. And a lot of people don't talk about, and a lot of people don't do it very often, or they don't realize that they are doing it, but they're doing it in unhealthy ways. And so I'm excited to have this because as someone who has been witnessing Tisha's growth, I am seeing how she puts all of this into action. And I'm like, all of this works. All of this is real. And so I'm so glad that you wanted to come on to this episode and talk about it. So take it away, Tisha. What is stories of reality creation and shifting consciousness for those listeners who have never heard this before?
Wow, thank you so much. So in the past, I didn't comprehend that I had the power to create my own reality. And if you would have told me that 8 years ago, I would have said, "Are you on drugs?" Because I didn't believe what was happening to me was happening for me. And in fact, it was happening to me. And I was at the effect of my life and not at the cause of my life. And this is, the message that I want to get out to your listeners and my followers is we do have the power to shift our consciousness and create the reality that we want. We get to call in just like a genie in a little what's that called?
Oh,
Little
the genie in the lamp.
yeah, and the little lamp. We get to rub the lamp and ask for all the things and it gets to manifest. But it is really believing it first and having the feeling come through you, and then see it. You know, what they say is you have to see it, then believe it. That's actually wrong. And what's right is you have to believe it is so, and then you will manifest that into your reality. So I have the perfect story, of course, because I'm a woman of 1,000 stories, right? So
Yes.
yes. So I've got the perfect story from this last week. My family and I did a European book tour, and where I became #1 international best-selling author. It's a co-authored book like the Bible, right? The Bible is a co-authored book. This is a co-authored book. It's 102 thought leaders wellness experts, artists, and creatives. And I have a chapter in this beautiful book that went um, international best-selling in 4 countries and 30 categories within 24 hours. So we climbed
Wow.
charts. And so I took this book on tour, on a European book tour. Um, we got home yesterday. That's how quick this was. We flew into London, down to France, went over to Italy, drove up to Switzerland, Austria, and ended in Germany. And the story I want to tell you about reality creation is when we were in Italy. My husband had created a controversy in his head where we had parked. He said, "Oh, I think we might get a ticket if we park here." But I was kind of clouding his judgment. I'm like, "Oh, we're good. We're in these lines." We couldn't read any of the signs. They were all in Italian. And there was a couple of men who were there that were like, "Here, I'll move up a little bit so you can scooch on in." And my husband was like, "Oh, I don't know about this." And we had rented the car in France and drove to Italy and then driving to all the countries. Well, when you do that, so now I have tribal knowledge. So I think I'm going to open up Cain's Travel after this. Why not? Right? Let's do all the things.
Why not? Exactly. Why not?
So when you rent a car in France and you take it to other countries, they're going to charge you an extra $1,500. And typically, what people do is rent the car in France, then they take it over to the train station, drop it at this train station, take the train over to Italy, get another car, roll around Italy, and then drop it at the train station, then go to, right? But I'm like, oh no, I am the creator of my reality. I get to have a car. Yeah, and it was quite the thing. Well, when we were in Italy, so my husband was parking at this location. I was clouding his judgment. These two men were clouding his judgment, but he said, "Well, we'll just leave the car here." But in his mind, he had created this controversy of, "Oh shoot, there's going to be a ticket or, something." And secretly, he was having that conversation with himself. So we go to bed in this bougie, bougie Airbnb in Italy. I was like, "Whoa, this is my life," right? So we go to sleep, come down the next morning. We can't find the car. The car
No.
is gone.
Oh, wow. It did. He spoke into reality. He said it.
And so my husband and I laugh a little bit because I'm like, "You're like a baby. You're like in, pre-kindergarten, TK, when it comes to spirituality. And I'm like in seventh grade, and you're like in, kindergarten." So just let me handle this, right? And so I asked him, "Did you think that there was going to be a problem?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "But you told me it was fine, and the other two guys told me it was fine, so I just parked there. But I thought that there was going to be a problem." I'm like, "Okay, great." So Crystal, we are stranded in Italy
Mm.
without our rental car. And I was like, okay. So talk about reality creation. I have a little 9-year-old. He was just dancing around. I asked him after, I said, "What were you thinking when we, got the car towed and there was no car and we had no way out of there? What were you thinking, baby?" He goes, "Oh, I figured you guys just figured it out. I was just going to be hanging out. And once you guys figured it out, we'd be on our way." And I'm like, okay. He had so much faith in us that we were just going to take care of everything. And we did, that he was got to play and dance and do all the things in Italy. So, but there was a moment I told my husband, I was like, "Okay, let me figure this out." And so I look down at my husband, I look at my son, and I almost started to cry. And in the past, I would have defaulted to like sitting there on the side of the steps, crying for hours until I figured out what was going to happen. And then I was going to put things into action. And I thought, oh no. And I did, for a blip moment, I thought, oh my gosh, this is totally going to ruin our day. This is going to take all day to find, because all the policemen speak Italian. All the signs were in Italian. All the little store merchants right there on the corner were speaking Italian. All the taxi cabs speaking Italian. How the heck were we going to find our car? Like, this could be potentially really, really bad. And we could probably lose 2 days. And we were only on our European tour for 9 days. And we had to get up to the next book signing. So I thought, for a blip moment, I thought, "Whoo, this is going to be a problem." And then I said, "Oh no, mm-mm. This is not the way it's going to work out." And in fact, I told my husband, I said, you sit right here with Landon, and I'm going to be walking around talking to a few people. When I went into a couple of merchants, they were speaking Italian. So I said, the policia, can you tell me where the police? And they're like, okay, down the corner and to the left. Well, I went down to the corner to the left, couldn't find them. And I'm like, okay, why don't I just use what I know? So I emailed the Airbnb guy. I said, hey, our car's not where we parked it. Do you know where it could have been possibly towed? Do you know what they do with cars? And he goes, well, could you tell me where you park? So I took a picture where we park and sent it to him. He goes, well, I'm sorry to inform you, but you have parked in an illegal parking spot. I was like, no
Oh.
kidding. I'm all, that's not helpful, but okay, dude. Right? So I'm like, okay, great. And I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but when I first picked up the rental car in France, I took a picture of the license plate. Well, three has always been my number, the power of three into everything. And it just dawned on me last night when I looked at the license plate. It was like SM 201 VC, right? 201 equals three. So, of course, this had to be my car. So I sent him a copy of the license plate, the Airbnb guy, and said, could you help us? He goes, okay. So about 10 minutes later. And so in my mind, I'm like, oh no, this is probably good. Just going to take an hour. And I'm talking to God. I'm having this conversation with God while I'm looking at my family down the aisle. I'm like, oh no, this is going to be taking about an hour. We're going to be having the car back. We're going to be on the road. We're going to be up to the cathedral in Milan. It's all going to work out. It's just like a little hiccup in the show in the Matrix. It's a hiccup in the Matrix. We always obviously had to be delayed for about a little hour, and then we'll be back on the road. This is all going to be fine. So I'm just and the potency and the knowing was so like with such conviction because I'm like, oh no, this is not going to even be ruining my day. With such conviction, I knew I'm going to be finding this car within the hour. We'll be back in the car. We'll be back on the road. So my husband's story, because he was a correctional officer and retired, and when he retired, he was doing like this little repo job. So he was repoing cars for this place. So he goes, so three times he tried to tell me, well, back in the States, there's going to be fees and impound fees and tow fees and ticket fees and all this stuff. This could be potentially over $1,000 and this is going to be really bad. And I said, no, don't even bring that into my reality. I am not here to be hearing. And I said, I don't want to hear it. I said, we're going to be getting the car within an hour. And it was that knowing, right? So the Airbnb guy comes back and he says, the car is located at this municipality. He goes, you need to go there. And when you go there, you need to follow all of the procedures strictly, or they will not let you have the car. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's great. I said, oh my gosh, you are our blessing. Thank you so much. And so I looked at my husband and my son, and then I turned around, Crystal, there were two taxi cabs sitting right there ready to take me, right? So I was like, oh my gosh, I just manifested these taxi cabs. Well, I talked to both of them, didn't speak English. They were both in Italian, but I showed him my phone and the address. And one guy talked to the other guy, and he was like, you go down and you do this, and you go under and you do this. And well, the car was about 30 kilometers away, which is a long way. Everything's
Yeah.
kilometers, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
it was like 25 miles or 23 miles. So like 30 minutes in a cab. So we're like humping around, all this stuff on the cab. I'm like, are they really taking us to the car? Are they about to kill us? So I'm like, okay, no, I'm getting all that out of my way, right? No, this is not happening in Italy. This is not my story. This is not my story. My story is in happily ever after. I'm a queen. This is what is going to be happening, right? So in the cab, I'm just like singing, having a good time. And my husband, his energy is pathetic. Okay. But I'm trying to transmute his energy in my babies. He's over there singing along with me, just having a good old time. Well, we go to the impound place, and it's this old, dusty, crusty Italian place. Oh, Italian mechanic place where it had all these parts everywhere. And I go walking up to the little ladies who are about like 23, 25, and they're just there, on a Tuesday afternoon doing their little job. And I'm like, hi, ladies. I was just wondering if our car is here because I think we parked in an illegal parking spot and I think it may have been brought over here. And I was just wondering if you could help us. And she goes, wait, is your car 201? I said, yes. She goes, oh, yeah, I have the ticket right here. I'm like, oh, great. I said, thank you for keeping our car safe. We'd just like to go ahead and get that for a minute, if that'd be good. She goes, okay. And then my husband proceeded to tell me again about the fees at the states. And here's what's important is, in the matrix, we have to unlearn what we have to reverse engineer everything, right? Unlearn what we've learned so we
Yeah,
can know what we know,
that's true.
right?
Very true.
So I was like, here's a situation where we have to unlearn all of this stuff. Thank you, but no, you're staying. I kept him at bay, like, right? So she goes, why don't you walk with me? She goes, I'm going to take you to the car. You're going to get the registration and bring it back to me. I'm walking to the car and I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And I'm using translator from English to Italian. Thank you so much for keeping our car safe. Well, she comes back. She goes, you're a very beautiful woman. And I'm like, oh, thank you. You are too. And thank you so much for keeping the car safe. I'm just like, really like transmuting this energy so they like me so they don't think I'm there to be a problem, which I just want to get the car back. And then I thought about calling the like a rental car place, and I'm like, okay, this is one of those situations. Do not be oversharing, right? Mom's the word. Just get the freaking car and be on your way to freaking Germany, right? It's like nobody needs to be knowing about this stuff. We're good. So I get the registration. She comes back again. By the power of three, my husband goes, well, the fines, the towing, the fines, the ticket, it's going to be like over $1,000. I said, and now I'm getting like angry with him. So now he's dropping my vibration. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, oh, honey, if you could just go over there, buy Landon a little soft drink, and I'll be handling this real quick. I'll be signing over this. We'll be out here in a minute, right? So I looked at the little lady using Google Translator, right? Okay, so thank you for holding our car. You have the registration. Is there anything else you need? She goes, yeah, she goes, the fee's just going to be 158 euros. And if you could just pay that 158 euros. And then she goes, there is a small ticket. We have to pay the Italian police of $29. So I was like, yeah, that'd be great. I'm happy to pay. I'm really happy to pay. If I could just give you my credit card right now, we'll be on our way, right? So she goes, okay. So I do that and I'm like, oh, 158 euros, which is like $162 American dollars, right? No big deal. I'm like, oh, this is perfect, right? So I look at my husband, I'm winking, I'm like, okay, this is going good. And she goes, well, she goes, I have to call the Italian police over here to sign off on your ticket, and you have to pay them the $29 fee. Well, I went to law school here in America, right? So I know the
Mm-hmm.
American laws. Not
Mm-hmm.
only do I know the American laws, I'm like the loophole queen. Like I know the private laws and the public laws, and I can find all the loopholes through everything. But I was sitting there, I'm like talking to God, and I said, God, there is no lessons I need to be learning from the Italian police today. There is no lessons I need to be learning from the Italian police today. Right? So just as I'm praying to God, I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, there's no lessons. The electricity cut out. They have no electricity.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh. So I was like, okay, this is a sign. Cool. So she goes, well, I can't contact the police right now. She goes, so if you promise me that you could go to the tobacconist, and over in Europe, they have tobacconists like every corner, like they have Starbucks here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And the tobacconist is where you pay your utility bills or a ticket or a fine. You go to the tobacconist, you pay there. If you could go to a tobacconist before 4 o'clock today, I'll let you go. And you and your family can be. I said, oh, yes, that's going to be perfect. That's going to be fine. She goes, now on WhatsApp, once you do that and get your receipt, you send me a picture of WhatsApp so I can tell the police and there won't be any problem. I said, oh, no, there's not going to be any problem, right? So anyway, she let us go, Crystal. Like I was like praying to God, so I didn't even have to have any run-ins with the Italian police whatsoever. We get in the car, we're on the road. It was an hour and a half. I said an hour, but it was an hour and a half because I think the God like made the light shut off for that not to happen. So I was in the
Mm-hmm.
flow. I was just like letting
Mm-hmm.
things know. So
Mm-hmm.
we're on the Autobahn traveling up north, right? We're on the Autobahn. And I looked at my husband. I said, so if I'm at cause and not at effect, why did I cause this to happen? And he goes, I don't know, but he goes, that was like the best case scenario in Italian history, as far as I'm concerned, what we came up with. And I said, I think I created this for this story. I said, I created it to have this relevant story to share to the people the power of reality creation and the power of not only consistency in your thought processes, but the potency and the knowing to override my husband's programming.
Mm-hmm.
So you and me and all of our listeners have the power to override these negative programs if we so choose, because we have free
Mm-hmm.
will. But we have to
Absolutely.
come in with this potency of the knowing to get this done. As you can imagine, being in Italy without a car and it being towed, this potentially could have been a really bad situation.
Absolutely
But
could have been. Yeah.
I was able to override all of that with the knowing that this wasn't going to be my story. Isn't that fantastic?
I love it. I love it. And you bring up so many good there's so many nuggets of good information that you provided. One, you were in flow. I think that is always like one of the number one things that for me, myself personally, has helped me reshape my own reality is like, I'm just going to go in flow. I'm going to let go and let God. I'm just going to I'm just going to accept it. There's something here. I don't know what that is, but I'm just going to go with it. And so I love that that's like the one thing that you were doing. The second thing that you mentioned, and I absolutely agree with, is all about our energy, our vibration. Your husband was at this like a lower vibration, you were at a higher vibration. And that's what happens a lot to many of us. So listeners, give yourself grace when this happens to you too. When you get yourself caught up in this low vibration of this stinking thinking is what I like to call it, of this place of thinking worst case scenario, catastrophizing. I'm one who suffers from catastrophizing thinking. I think of scenarios A through Z. Um, but I love the fact that you were aware of that. And I think that's like one of the things that has always helped also me personally is the awareness of like, I have a choice here. I could either cry a river, sit like what you said, I could either sit down and cry and then put into action or just say no. I got to do something about this and I could cry but I got to get stuff done. So yes, I love that story and I love how it showed the importance of our own mindset, the importance of our energy, of our vibration, and the importance of even like what you said, communication with God, having a relationship with higher power and saying like, "Help me. I can't do this. This is bigger than me." And then just to trust. Um, Life happens for us, not to us. And there was a lesson there for you. And you're right. It was for you to be able to come and share this with everyone. Oh, Tisha, I love that. However, so let me ask a question because I think a lot of listeners, my experience always ask this, well, how do I change my mindset? Like especially for someone who stays. We'll use your husband as an example. Oh, Craig, we'll use you as an example. Who's so used to the system. Like, he worked as a correctional officer. He knows the law in here in the States in and out. Um Now to be going to another country, he was still bringing up those systems with him. He was still bringing up those thoughts and the fees and all of this, the towing and all, like everything he was bringing up, the narrative he was saying in his head over and over again. How can someone catch that narrative and stomp it in that moment? Because I think that's where a lot of listeners, and myself included, can sometimes get stuck in. It's like we get stuck in that tunnel, in that dark hole, and it's like, how do we get out of here? Um, he had you, which is great, but what about for someone who doesn't have Tisha Marie Cain next to them? So please share
Well,
that. I would love to hear
you,
your thoughts on that.
yes, you always have Tisha Marie Cain. You have full access to my calendar at any given moment. Even if you're in Italy stranded, Tisha, how can you help me? And I would also like to say is I would do a check-in with your thought at that moment. Is this thought moving me towards my goal, or is this thought moving me away from my goal? If it's moving you away from your goal, then you need to simply change it immediately and move it to your goal. So my husband, and he is training, he's in the Cain method. I'm teaching him the Cain method. He's in training to realize, okay, if he's sitting there, there's going to be all these fees. Is that your goal? That you're going to impound tack ticket fees? Are you want to have all these fees stacked in? Is that your goal? No, okay. Then can you simply think and believe that, hey, this is just going to be a little blip. It's going to be fine. We're going to be in and out. Can you believe that in order to move you towards your goal? And if you can't believe that, can you just sit there and think that for a minute, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you, and this was my opportunity or area of growth when I was going through the family court system. I had so much friction and I would probably say hatred, even though I don't really think that I have any, I could never hate really anyone. But
But there was a
so
lot of
much
anger. And so I think it's okay
anger,
to I
yeah,
think it's okay to admit that there was anger and hurt. It
anger
wasn't
and
hatred.
hurt. Yeah.
Anger and hurt.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it wasn't hatred, but anger and hurt to the anti-family court system. And when I continued to focus on how wrong they had done me, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I didn't have a mindset coach. I had a therapist and I had all the things that the systems pushed on me, but I didn't have a mindset coach to say, okay, look at all the beautiful things that are happening because of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what you focus on grows, so focus on something different if it's not towards your goal. And I know that's a lot of dense information. And how do I even make this simpler is what is your goal? And move your thinking towards that goal. That's it. My goal is to release 20 pounds. If I stay in the now moment, now, because all we ever have is now, right? And
Yes, we do.
what they've said to us in the past is not right. Like, and that's what depression is. Depression is living in the past, and
Mm-hmm.
anxiety is living in the future. You know this.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you get out of depression and anxiety is to stay in the now moment. And
Yes,
if you can
absolutely.
collapse the here and the now, if you can collapse time and space down to the here and now, to the molecular version of that, time and space, all you ever have is the here and now, right? So if you stay in the here and now, moving towards my goal of releasing weight, then I'm not going to be eating a candy bar right now. I'm going to choose a healthy option. And then 5 minutes from now, you're going to be in the now. Okay, I'm still hungry. Maybe I drink a bottle of water, right? So looking at those thoughts, are they moving me towards my goals? And if not, then what am I doing? Does that help?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. And I think it's that reminder for people, like the awareness. Just as I like to tell a lot of my clients, and you also, you just said it, it's like focus on the awareness, it being in the present moment, because you're right. If we get stuck in the past or we get stuck in the future, and that's when chaos will go everywhere because it's out of our control. And I always remind people we don't have control over any of it. We don't. You don't have control over what happened in your past. You don't have control over what's going to happen in the future. All you have control over, and you don't even have control over the present. What you do have control over is how you're going to react to what's in front of you. And
Mm,
that reaction is what people don't realize is what causes the ripple effect of everything. And so one thing that you said a little bit ago, and I absolutely agree too, is the frequency of not just our own frequency, but even the frequency of our words.
mm,
That is powerful. And people don't I don't think people really comprehend or understand or really believe in the frequency of our words because words are powerful.
mm,
Our words are powerful, and we can create our reality with our own words, with our own thoughts.
Mm.
I mean, we were just talking before this episode, we were talking about our words and how we manifest the things we want. Like you're making things happen with your words. I have made things happen with my words and with my thoughts. And I mean, I would have never believed it until I started seeing it into action. And so I think that's also another part where a lot of listeners can can be aware of, okay, these thoughts, how can you change it in that moment? How can you flip it? How can you turn on the switch? And also speak it out into reality.
Mm.
Um, speak into it. And I love that that's what you were trying so hard to do in that moment. No, you were not trying. You were doing it. In that moment, you were doing it. And
I
yeah.
rejected everybody's reality but the reality I wanted to create. And I'm an audio processor. So when I speak out loud, it's like, so it is, right? So I'm
Mhm.
like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, this is going to be good. And I would say that, oh yeah, this is being good. And then I would walk by a stranger and they're like nodding their head, like, okay, yeah, this is going to be good. So then I have the buy-in of strangers who don't even know what the heck's happening by me saying, oh, this is going to be good. This is only going to be an hour. And the strangers are like, okay, cool. And God said, where two or more come together, so it is. So now I have me and my baby, not my husband, but the stranger is like buying in, like, this is gonna be good. And so then I had the taxi cab driver, oh yeah, this is gonna be great. We're gonna be finding this car right away. And they're like, oh yeah, it should be right there. And you also need to know this part of the story. So when we were there waiting and I was talking to God, like there's nothing I need to know about the Italian police. And there's no lessons I need to learn. Here comes another couple from New York. They had had their car towed too, and they had spent 3.5 hours trying to find it. They couldn't find a taxi. Then when they did find a taxi, the taxi didn't know where to take them. And then when they found the taxi, and they knew where to go. They took them to the other impound yard, not the impound yard that they got. So when they showed up to me, they were all torn and tethered and exhausted and needed water and food. And I looked at them and I'm like, oh wow, that could have they're me and I'm them. Like that could
Yeah.
have been my story. And I
Mhm.
know that I created this story and they had the story that I could have had. And
Mhm.
I know that they were me in another timeline,
Yeah.
right? And in
Absolutely.
this timeline, creating those words to say, oh no, and this is what's going to happen. And even at the point where I was like, oh no, that's friction on something else, right? So I just stopped saying, oh no, and started saying, hey, this is what's going to happen. We're going to be getting that car in the next hour, and we're going to be on the road. We're going to be headed to the Catholic Cathedral in Milan. We're going to be figuring this out, and that's our path. And yep, this is all going to work out. And so it was. And so it was. It was so
Absolutely.
gorgeous. And I created it
Absolutely.
just for the story, just for the relevance of, stringing together the potency of how we can override someone else's programming. And my
Mhm.
husband
Mhm.
has full buy-in right now because he fully believed that it was going to be a whole day wasted, thousands of dollars of fine. He fully believed that because I was in the higher residence
Mhm.
of my truth and my love and my knowing and my flow, that
Mhm.
overrode the negative aspects
Mhm.
of what he was going through. And he sees that now and he says, I can believe it and it makes sense. And I have a lot to learn.
Yes. Yes. And that, and I love that. I love that he sees that. And,
Oh,
for listeners that are listening to this part, like, yes, all of you, you can absolutely do it. It's not easy. It takes a lot of work. And for me personally, I think the number one key is consistency. It's
mm,
also consistency. Um, and also, honoring your feelings. There's I like to when I go through it, I also to remind myself, feel, then deal. Don't
mm,
deal, then feel. Because I think sometimes for me, especially because I'm fun fact about me, I'm an emotional manifesting generator. So my emotions will have to play a huge role in my manifestations. They have to, like, it's who I am. It's in my human design and gene keys. And so for me, it's really important to also just feel what I have to feel first. Because if I ignore the feeling and then I try dealing, that's when, shit hits the fan. That's when I make decisions out of desperation. out of desperation, or I make decisions that aren't best for me because it's like I'm just dealing. But when I feel and I release and I let go of whatever emotion I have to feel into, then I start dealing. It really helps me. So I just wanted to give that tip for anyone out there who also needs to like first feel. And it sounds like that's what you did too. Like you had to feel it a little bit. You did panic. You did get in your feelings about it. You thought about, okay, I'm just gonna cry. And you're like, okay, nope, feelings are done. Let's get the action steps done.
Yeah, and it's important to realize that because I believe, in that valley of despair, a lot of people in the world today are living in that valley of despair. And I think sometimes I miss the mark as a coach and not living there too long to really connect with my listeners and connect with my followers because I've done so much work of this reality creation, knowing that I can move the needle in every aspect of the word. But like you said, I need to live in that valley of despair to say, hey, I was on the verge of crying. I was on the verge of chaotic thinking. I was on the verge of like, how the heck do I get us out of here? And in the past, that would have been my default mode,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But
Absolutely.
because I had worked so hard in mindset, I'm like, how can I be a expansive mindset coach if not, I'm not growing my own mindset, right? How can I be a life coach if my wheel of life, my health, my nutrition, my finances, my relationships, my spirituality, if that's not out of 10, how am I to be able to coach people to salvation if I'm not living, breathing, living the word, right? And
Mhm.
so nowadays I just kind of dip in and soar right back out, but it's in that dip in where I go, I felt this way. Have you felt this way in the past? And if you have, they said this, that in the past it would have been all these fines, but I felt this way and you felt this way. And knowing that we can move the needle out of this and create something different if you have the consistency and the potency to do
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
But again, you don't really know until you practice this on a daily basis with little things, right? Like you could
Absolutely.
you could practice this when you go to the restaurant and you're like the waitress is, she's maybe brash or she's not so friendly, right? Okay,
Mhm.
well, we're just going to be having a good time right now. We don't really care what's happening there, but
Mhm.
right here at our table, thank you for this warm tea. Thank you for this beautiful appetizers. Thank you.
Mhm.
And she comes back and you make a joke with her, man, let me at him. Who made you upset today? And you change her way of
Mhm.
thinking, right? But
Mhm.
it's practicing those little moments. So when you have a big moment like me having my car towed in Italy and my and me being the family manager, that was a lot, right? I was like, okay, how do I fix this, right? And so those little moments practicing and seeing how it so practice small, right? Practice with little things until you, oh, I saw that happen. And you start seeing evidence of your belief system. And then now you have enough reps under your belt. You're like, okay, that happened, that happened, that happened. I was able to change that. Now I'm at this big thing. Well, I've changed all of these other things. I can certainly change this big thing. And then you do. It's so
Oh,
gorgeous.
I love that. And I love that you said that because you're right. Being the manager of your family, as a single mom, I see this all the time with my kids. And right now that you're sharing all of this, I remembered that I practice this with my kids, and so I want to give this tip for if you want to practice it with Landon too. Which honestly, I'm already being like I'm not surprised if you already do, but if you don't, here's a beautiful tip for you to
Tell
practice
me,
with your
tell me.
kiddo.
I'm excited.
So every time my kids and I go out to a park or we go out into like just as a family outing, I always tell them, "Hey, tell the universe what you want to see today." And they're like, "What do you mean?" Like I first started like that. I was like, "Just tell them what you want to see." And so one day I told my kiddo, I was like, "I want to see a rock that's shaped in a heart." And they're like, "Okay, mom." Within like by the end of the day when we were walking back to the car, my kiddo goes and looks, "Mom, look at the rock." And it was a shape of a heart. And I was like, "You see?" You see? And so now every time we go out, I was like, hey, do you guys want to see feathers today? And they're like, yeah, let's find feathers. And then we'll start seeing feathers. So like, it's like that, like just little things. So then that way they can start getting used to it. And so now my kid, all the time, he'll see something. He'll be like, I want to see this. And then he'll see it. And then he'll say, God is so good. I was like, I know, buddy. God is good.
You're a good mom, and I am
Oh,
totally
thank
going to
you.
glean that
But
from you. You are a
please do
good
it. It
mom.
it, it really helps. Like it helps kids start to see that they're like again their own mindset. And I think for me it was really important to do this with my kiddos because well they've only been with me for two and a half years going on three. Um so talk about reprogramming their mindset and like really having them see reality different because they've been in survivor mode for their whole lives. They've been in survival mode for their whole lives. And so I really wanted to them to start seeing like, no, like your words are powerful. You yourself are the magic. You don't need other people to do the magic for you. You do it yourself. And so by doing that and showing them like, look, you just say it and it's gonna happen. Um, my kiddos have manifested a puppy. I still don't know how I'm gonna do it.
Dude, no, these kids are so tapped into source. Like they're the closest to source than we are, right? We're further
Absolutely.
away. So these kiddos are so tapped into source. I believe that they manifested this little puppy. Yeah.
Oh, they did. Oh, absolutely. And it's the puppy's coming into our lives. Like it's already happened, and I'm like already seen, and I'm like man, now I have to mentally prepare for it because I'm like, okay,
It's
how am I going
another
to do this?
kid.
Yeah, two kids, two cats, a dog. Oh my God, Crystal, what did you sign up for? But it's that mindset of okay, let's unlearn that. Let's start preparing. So I'm preparing them now, but they don't know that the puppy's coming into our lives. Like they do, but they don't. Um, so the way it happened was my mom had puppies, like my mom's pet dog had puppies. And my kids were like, we want a puppy. And so I told them, ask ask the universe. All you got to do is ask God, hey, can we have this puppy and give them a timeline, give them a date, say by this time, if this dog is still available, it'll be for us. Well, the date came and went. The dog is still there. And I'm like, okay, God, I hear you. I told the kids to do it and you listened. Now I got to do my part. But it
Yes.
really does help. Like at least for me, I have really seen a difference that my kids have started to see how their words are powerful and how they just speak into it. If they whatever it looks like for them, if it's praying, if it's just having a conversation or just saying it out loud, um, it has made a difference in the way they see
Mm,
their reality. So I just wanted to give you that tip because as we were talking about
I
this,
love
especially when you
it.
said it, like, you were the manager of it. Even Landon was like, I'm just gonna dance and I'm like, I'll be fine because I know you guys will take care of it. And that's beautiful because, Tisha, I want to also give you a huge compliment because a lot of kids, again, this is me with my own kids, they go into panic mode because that's how they're so used to it. And so to know that you have provided Landon a safe environment for him to
Mm.
not feel like it's his responsibility to take care of it. Trust me, coming from a people pleaser, coming from a child who it was my responsibility to figure it out for my parents, I commend you because that is so good. Like I'm also honored to have this advice from you because it's like, yeah, thank you. Thank you for reminding me that that's all we're doing is trying to create and trying to break cycles for our kids. So then that way down the line, years from now, when Landon is in Italy and that happens, if it happens to him, he's going to be like, I'll be fine because it's my reality and I know I'll be fine. Where if you would have given him a different reality of panic and of stress and of crying, like of all of those low vibrational, that would have been implanted in his subconscious. And so I just wanted to tell you, like, you're
You know
doing a
what?
great
Thank you,
job.
because I missed it. I missed it until you brought it out. I was just like looking at him. Of course, he's a little kid having fun over there, but I missed the I missed the fact that um he could have been like people pleasing and like worrying about how I felt, and I missed that. So thank you
Yeah.
for bringing that to my awareness that yeah, like he has so much faith in us that the kid has no worries, you know?
Yeah.
He's an international traveler at 9, and I'm
Hmm.
like to be over there and not have he just had full faith and credit that we were just going to take care of everything and he could just be his little self.
Yeah.
Um, I miss that. So thank you for bringing that to me. Yeah.
Yeah, no. You're welcome. Yes, pat yourself in the back. Absolutely. Yes, and I have to say that because I think for me, the reason why I have been so focused on changing my reality, changing my mindset is it is for me, but it's also for my kids because I've seen it. I've seen it ripple into them. I have seen how by let it begin with me, by how for me, like, if you want to see the world change, you got to be the change. I
Mm.
100% believe and stand by that quote by Dr. Seuss. Be the change you want to see in the world. And my kids, like, so that's why when you said that, I was like, oh my God, look at Tisha. Look at like the life she's providing Landon. So I had to tell you because
Yeah,
I mean
thank
everything I
you.
do is for myself and for my kiddos. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, like, so and I also, because for me, my kids still have a lot of work to do with that. I could have seen my kids gone on that opposite end, but it's that reminder of how much progress has been going on with my kiddos because they see things. Our kids are paying attention. Our kids are listening.
Boy,
Our
are
kids
they.
are watching. They're sponges. um and yeah, even my ex-husband the other day, he takes the kids every Sunday, and he came back that day. He goes, "Yeah, like L, that's my 10-year-old. He goes, L is he's really believing in God lately." And I'm like, "I know." But I don't push it onto him. He just hears me. He just hears me say, "Oh, God's so good." So now he's saying, "Oh, God is so good." I'm like, "Yes, God is good." We can get upset with God at times because again, life is hard and my kiddos have had a really rough life, but I wanted them to start seeing that like it doesn't have to stay rough. We can make
Mm.
those changes. um and so I just wanted to share all of that and share my tips on how to include your kids in this mindset changes and making their reality, because it really does work and it makes a huge difference,
Oh,
in them and in the 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 ripple effect, because I would hope that from this my kids would kind of like shares all of that with his friends, and I hope that his friends don't think he's woo woo or anything, but it's like it's okay, like you're not everyone's gonna understand you, buddy, and but as long as you're happy, that's all that matters.
yeah. And I think we're going to find evidence of our belief system, right? If we go
Absolutely.
out into the world and we put out, hey, this is what I want to see today, and then you see it, you're just like, yeah, that's just evidence of God working miracles in our lives. They're just showing up every day. And that when we went in those cathedrals in Italy, I just told my husband and son, we were able to light the little candles and put them on the thing. And I said, you know what? Let's just pray. I said, God is everywhere, but specifically in this place, because people have subpoenaed God here. Oh, I'm going to subpoena God here in this cathedral and in these candles. And I said, why don't we just put our deepest desires and our deepest wishes into these candles? And we're going to leave them here for everybody who comes into this cathedral to pray over them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had done that on the first one, and we had went in like five or six other ones because I wanted to see the architectural of Germany, and how like these beautiful places were. And so then my little son was like, can we leave our wishes for God? I said, absolutely. Here's $1. Go get that candle,
Yes.
right? And so he wanted to do that. So I loved your tip on how helping these kids have this mindset of being empowered and asking for
Mm-hmm.
what they all, even my nail lady, she says, if I put in too many requests for God, God will not honor them. I'm
Mm-hmm.
all, okay, I respect your belief system, but I'm requesting a lot out of God these days. And because I put in my requests every day. And I said, do you know my list gets checked off? She
Yeah.
goes, wow, are you, and she is from Vietnam, right? So it's a
Oh.
different culture, and I get it. But she goes, I just don't want to put in, we have clients coming in. I just don't want to put in too many requests. I'm like, oh no. I said, why don't you just try it one time? Ask God for a request. We have 100 people getting nails done today. The weather's beautiful, should be no. And so when I went and got my nails done again, she was like, do you know that? that request I put in for God came true? I said, of course it did.
I love it. I love it.
I'm
I
all, of
love
course
it.
it did, Lily. I said, so are you going to put in more requests? She goes, no, I'm good. I'm all, okay. I got to, let me pull out my list. I got a list right here for but just honoring her and
Oh, I love that.
honoring her culture and honoring myself in the process. It's
Hmm.
been so beautiful. So what I want to leave your readers and your listeners with is this reality creation. You get to have the most beautiful life that you desire if you want it. That's part of being human is that we have free will. And a lot of people, and I'll put my hand up here, was holding on to the suffering, right? Because suffering was a familiar friend. And who was I without the sadness? And what was I without the sadness? And once I gave up that flavor of sadness, my whole life soared. And this is what I do through hypnotherapy is get rid of these anger, sadness, fear, shame, guilt, not good enough. Clear out your vessel for then you're like, the angels are singing because I have a clear vessel. Now what do I do? And you drop in some abundance codes, you drop in, some of your passion work, and you see how your life gets to soar. So whatever you want, you can have it. It's whatever you believe, you're right.
Mm, thank you. I love that. I love that message. I like to call it the cheesemate. I love that cheesemate for everyone. Yes, yes. We all have it. We all can do it. And it's exactly what you just shared. It's about finding ways to heal those wounds because there is that part of us that forget our worth, forget our value, forget to believe in ourselves. And so, hypnotherapy is a great modality. And there's so many other modalities out there. Whatever works for everyone, and you got to do the work. There's this. I talked about it in one of my podcast episodes about funny, a joke about in Italy about this old beggar man who went to God always begging, begging, or his patron saint begging, please let me win the lottery. Please let me win the lottery. Please let me win the lottery. Until the patron saint one day actually woke up from the statue and said, please buy the lotto ticket. So it's also that reminder to people. It's like, yes, we can ask and ask, but we got to do the work. We also got to do our part. God will meet us, but meet us halfway. We got to meet God the other half. And you've been doing the
Absolutely.
work. And I love that because I've again for familia, for listeners, for viewers, like I have and before we started recording, I said this to Tisha. I remember you from your previous life. I remember you when you were in that dark place. I remember when you came through those doors where I used to work night and day, night and day. So it works. It really does work. We can change our lives. We can change our mindset. We just got to do the work. And you've been doing the work, Tisha, and I'm so proud of you. So, so
Mm,
proud of you.
I received that. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you. And thank you
you.
for allowing me to be on your podcast again
Yes,
because you're a
always. I love
superstar.
it.
I love our conversations. I want more time with you. Of course, you're a superstar, so everybody's,
Oh, thank you.
wanting more time. So thank
Thank
you
you.
again. I really honor you and I see you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all of that. I also receive all of that with so much love and gratitude. All right. Well, thank you for being here. I'll be sure to put in the description for those of you who, again, you want to go work with Tisha. I think I've done a hypnotherapy session with Tisha and it was phenomenal. And we worked on me also releasing not good enough, which has been so beautiful. And so like my life has been from that moment. I've seen it. I've seen how that ugly monster shows up every so often of like, hey, you're not good enough. And I'm like, nope, stay, go. We're not doing this today. We're not doing this today because I am good enough. Oh, but thank you. Thank you so much. I'll be sure to put all of that. Um, I don't know if you have any other last words or anything you want to share.
Just if they want to work with me, you have full access to my calendar. I am about 3 weeks booked out, which is great and beautiful opportunity to have. Go to tishamariecain.com. I'm Tisha Marie Cain on all the platforms, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Go, you have access to my calendar, book and pay, and we'll get in there, change your limiting beliefs, release core negative values, and drop in some money mindset to have you have
Absolutely.
all the wealth and health and everything that this world has to offer you. So if you're
Yes.
interested, you know where to find me.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much, Tisha. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here again. All right, familia. I love you all so much. Thank you for being here with all of that. I am sending you all so much fire and butterflies. And as always, don't forget, love your now. Bye.
Bye.